folks. Welcome in to a 10 p.m. edition of the UB Bulls post-game show here at Trainwreck Sports, brought to you by Bullet Points. As always, show sponsor today, Hartman's Distilling. Get out there, try one of the best Loganberry vodkas I've ever had. Hartman's Distillery on Chicago Street. We got to get to the game now, Mike. 35-34 barn burner down in Norfolk, Virginia. Whew. There's no other way to put it than 40 yards of offense in the second half, Mike. Not what you want. So many plot lines to talk about, but we're going to bounce it off to you first, Mike. What are your initial reactions to winning on a missed extra point?
Exhale. That's exhaling right now is my initial reaction. I've never seen a game so lopsided in the first half and then the exact opposite in the second half. That game was just on drugs. I'm telling you, like, that was one of the craziest football games I've ever seen. And to have it end the way it did, there was no better ending for that game after what we saw the previous 60 minutes. So just still trying to process everything that we saw.
And that Mickey Mouse rinky-dink broadcast that we had with awful angles. Yeah. I was taking my own videos to try to rewatch plays back because I wanted to see what was going on throughout the game. And it was challenging. Like, the ESPN still doesn't have a box score, so they didn't have an ESPN guy putting in the scores. They're live. That's still missing some of the statistics to get into, which I really wanted to see. But
there's no live stats anywhere. Even Liberty had no live stats available to anybody. So it's a guessing game. Who even knows?
Yeah, and it's I think it's really important because I wanted to kind of get into the nuances of the game back and forth. So we're kind of going off of just reactions, just our feels, just our thoughts right now in this game. But people aren't happy. I've had some tweets. I've seen some tweets to Bullet Points. I've seen some tweets in our internal chats of people just genuinely just disappointed in that performance. The conservative nature of the game, I think, just got people off hands in a game where you could dominate. You kept punting it on 4th and 3 and 4 from the around midfield numerous times. You had numerous special teams blunders that led to 2 blocked punts in the first quarter alone. And it also led to the benching of your punter, which was more than justified. I mean, between the blocked punts, him taking a stutter step on the first blocked punt, to the rollout to the defensive end who was unblocked, which schematically doesn't make sense. So something was going on with the punter there, leading to a benching into their backup punter kicker, Jackson Balter, taking the majority of punts and looking pretty decent doing it. So just some complete blunders on the special team side. I know you were pretty adamant on the return game, not calling fair catches at times, just being, quite frankly, a really poor unit all night for the UB Bulls, outside of one blocked field goal, which they returned to the house early on in this game. Other than that, that unit was so poor, it was absurd. And then leading to, like, one of the most disappointing things is the offense, Mike. We're going to start there. Are you disappointed in the offense not being able to move the ball against Old Dominion in the second half at all? Up, 35-7. They can't run the freaking football. That's what they're supposed to be doing. That's what you said on the pregame show. What happened?
I don't know what happened, but you hit the nail on the coffin. Every unit of this team, offense, defense, special teams, had at least one very high pro today and some very, very low cons. But starting with the offense in the second half, it almost feels like in the first half, they tried to establish the run early, weren't really effective, and then they started opening things up with Van Treese going after Keon Williams, had a lot of success with that, and that they thought they could carry that into the second half, but they had no success with that early on, and they just kept trying to stick with it, and then at the same time as they're struggling to get the passing offense going in the second half, the defense started to show some cracks and started letting Old Dominion get closer in the game. So when Coach Mo started seeing that happen, they instantly then went from, okay, we're going to try to still be aggressive in the air, to now we're going to go back to what we think we're good at. We're going to run the ball. But they weren't getting anything. And at that point, it was obvious early in the fourth quarter, they had no clue what they were doing. They were out of sync throwing the ball. They couldn't get anything on the ground. And when they had the ball with 4 minutes left inside their 2-yard line, I was just waiting for a safety. And honestly, the one play looked like it might have been a safety for Old Dominion. But Are these fixable issues? I think they are, because I think once you go into Mac play, they'll find a more consistent running game. I've been expecting that all year. I thought really today was the game that we'd see that, but I don't know. That was scary. You scored 35 points, but it wasn't really due to the offense. It was a couple kind of fluky plays that got you 14 points. So that was kind of disgusting to watch in the second half.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned the black field goal, getting to 7 of the points, and then them dropping wide open touchdowns in the first half. The announcers are pretty adamant. Was a pretty poor performance by the announcers, in my opinion, calling their team "we," and you want to see this type of performance, and like just outrightly being a poor unit for being on ESPN Plus.
Old Dominion production. I mean,
Old Dominion production with not very good angles. The thing about the safety, we had an internal debate about it. I stopped it. I played it. The ball was in his right hand. He didn't get out of the ball completely out of the end zone. There's no chance. That was a safety. But I guess it's neither here nor there at this point. Honestly, who knows? I think they would have given way better field position punting off than they did end up getting the ball at the 40 there to end the game. But you saw a broken coverage one-on-one with Corey Gross, a guy I really like there, Mike. Playing the man, not the ball at the end of the game. Just a total mismatch. You saw some DBs all over the place. Hudgens made some poor plays, not recovering a fumble at one point. There's just a lot to clean up on the defensive side of the ball, letting up 34 points. Mike, we were on the pregame show talking about they're not having an offense. They can't move the ball. Sure, could they get point here or there? They couldn't move the freaking football. They come in at home against Buffalo and do whatever they want in the second half.
I think that's the most concerning. I think that's the most concerning point for me, because although the Old Dominion defense isn't good, but we know the limitations of the Bulls offense. They have a quarterback that's limited. He's a game manager, and they really need their running game to be successful to move the ball. And today they didn't have their running game going. So, okay, 40 yards in the second half, that's really not acceptable, but I can understand what contributed to that. The defense is supposed to be the strength of this team. They held Nebraska to 28 points. They held Coastal Carolina to 28 points, and then suddenly you allow 27 points in the second half to Old Dominion. DJ Mack Jr., the quarterback, he entered today completing under 50% of his passes, and if the first half is indicated of anything, maybe it's because his wide receivers are just awful, because they were dropping everything in the first half. But the second half, the Bulls it's almost like what I don't want to say that they thought the game was over, but it's almost like they took their foot off the pedal thinking we're up 28 points. Well, we can go for a big hit, or we can try to make a play here. And they got a little bit loose and got some bad habits going, because the one long touchdown run by Mac was just horrible tackling and just players being in horrible positioning. And from that point on, it didn't really seem like UB had any idea what they were doing on defense. And give him some credit. Another big thing that changed is entire first half, UB was generating a ton of pressure, and they were getting Mac down. Second half, they had a few moments, but weren't getting nearly as close to him overall, and were struggling more in the run defense.
Mike. Yeah. As you start to look at this, break it down a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball, you mentioned the long run by Mac. You saw a pretty poor tackling job by Marcus Fuqua, one of the worst efforts I've seen from a D1 player. That's challenging to me at this high level of play. He didn't even make a sick, Lamar Jackson type of move. I mean, he just kind of stood there and ran. I mean, there's nothing to be said there. It was a pretty poor performance. Something was going on down there. Do we know? Was it confirmed? Did we see Riggins at all? Like, do we know what was going on with that?
I didn't see him. If he did play, I didn't really notice him too much. I know I was getting texts about what's going on with Riggins. I don't know. I do want to say this though. Riggins DE made on the other side of the field. Max Michel made a couple good plays today, and both times he did make a play, the announcers called him James Patterson, which was just another.
Well, they had a rough day, Mike. I'm not just going to blame them for rooting for their team. We'll go back and forth whether that's acceptable or not. I don't think it is. Calling their team we.
As a former broadcaster, like, I understand it's a difficult job, but you're calling an ESPN Plus broadcast. Come on, get it. get it right. And but yeah,
they couldn't even call them the Bulls. They were the Bills way more than I've ever heard in my life.
If Riggins had been playing, the second half doesn't go that way. I'm pretty confident it doesn't go that way. Riggins is a game changer at that mid level, where he can play against the best of them. But when he's playing against schools like Old Dominion or MAC opponents, he terrorizes those linemen. And I feel like he would have had enough pressures in the second half to still keep Mac off his game. I feel like Mac had just enough time in the second half to kind of find a comfort zone. So I want to know what's going on with Riggins, because I feel like that definitely had an impact when the Bulls started getting a little bit tired defensively.
Yeah, we need a little transparency there, because I don't even think even the Buffalo News reporters, Rachel Lindsay didn't know as well, mentioning that he just needed Taylor needs one sack to move into a tie with Stephen Means for 5th in UB program history.
I feel like that's just something colleges don't provide. I mean, it's different in the professional level. Colleges, they don't tell you who's starting at quarterback half the time until snaps. So there's a lot of hidden stuff when it comes to college football, and then injuries. They don't want to provide that information because they're still students, and they don't want to provide that information. So it could be a number of things. And to be honest, we might never get a straightforward answer on what was going on. Maybe Coach Mo will at the presser on Tuesday, but it's one of those things. If it was something serious, I doubt they would even tell us anyway.
Interesting. Well, the fans want to know, Mike, you feel pretty strongly. I think you and Rob kind of err on this side. Maybe me and Ty B, he's usually pretty positive, might err on the other of this being correctable. I didn't see a lot today, Mike, and I have to be fair. I have to be fair to people that listen, that rely on me for UB football coverage, UB basketball coverage. I didn't see a lot that strikes me as going more than 6-6. You do. I know you felt pretty strongly about it. I don't see beating a really strong Ball State team, a really strong Western team. Even Bowling Green pulled a big game out in Minnesota. It looks like the Bulls can disappear at halves, if not longer, in a game, Mike. You feel pretty positive about it. I know your Ohio Bobcats are down. We can't have that mean the whole East is down. We know the Bobcats are down. They look pretty poor.
Well, if the Bobcats are down, the whole East is down, in my opinion.
Apparently. We know Akron's down. Bowling Green apparently put stuff together.
Here's my thing. It's not even – don't confuse my thinking that UB can still win 8 games as I am super high on this team, as much as I am just super low on the rest of their conference. So going into the year, I thought this would be a similar team to last year, but a little bit weaker depth-wise and a little bit weaker in the run game, because you lose Jarrett Patterson and you lose some players on the offensive line. But I still thought they had enough returning to still have a decent run game. Van Treese has always been a game manager, so I thought with the players around him, he could still do that. And I thought the defense could actually be stronger. So when I look at this game, and granted, like, I'm reevaluating some of my thoughts right now after you struggle to hold on against one of the worst teams in the country. The MAC East is horrible. There's only one team I respect in the entire division, and that's Kent State. And I don't even know if Kent State is good, to be honest. Ohio should be a walkover. Like, the Bobcats are horrible right now. Miami, Ohio, they have Gabbard, and they're decent.
They're better.
They're better, but are they better than UB? I don't know. Maybe that's a toss-up game. Maybe I was a little overconfident in that game going into the season. But Bowling Green, I don't care that they beat Minnesota. That's a good win. Probably a fluke, to be honest with you. Bowling Green has been horrendous the last couple of years. Akron is not good. The MAC West games, I know that Western Michigan is going to be difficult, but NIU, despite their win over Georgia Tech, they are a horrible football team. And Ball State is not the team that they were last year. They're 1-3 right now. That could go either way as well. So the way I look at it is this team going to be a shoo-in to win the MAC East? No, but there's still no reason to think they won't go 5-3 overall in the MAC. And if you go 5-3, 6-2 in the MAC overall, that's 7-8 wins. You might have a chance to go to the MAC championship in Detroit. So that's my reasoning. I still think they have enough talent to take care of the rest of the conference. You're talking about teams that are in the bottom 20 in the NCAA. Right. I don't think that UB is a bottom 20 team. I think UB is probably like a 70 to 80 type team. And I think the rest of the MAC East is 100 to 130.
Okay, so you got their games coming up. You got a big per game next week at home, CBS Sports Network, 10-2 at 12 p.m. against Western. You got Kent on the road. Then you got that Ohio, aforementioned terrible Ohio and Akron game. So those are 2 wins right there. We'll start with Western and Kent real quick. We don't have to break them down at all. But you think that those 1-1 there, you have to be 1-1 there?
That's my thinking before the year. Before the year, I
think 1-1. Okay,
yeah.
And you're still 1-1 there.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, you have them
3-1. I don't think Kent has proven themselves. So Kent, Dylan Crum is a very good quarterback, but what have they actually done? I mean, Kent had a tough non-conference schedule, so I'm not going to hold that against them. They were playing teams that were beyond.
Texas A&M, Iowa, Maryland. Yeah.
So I don't blame them for that. But last year's game was destruction. Kent got destroyed by UB at UB Stadium last year. And then the year before was the game when UB blew a huge lead late in the second half against Kent, where the Bulls collapsed.
It was reminiscent of today. It was reminiscent.
Yeah, very reminiscent. Special teams, everything kind of falling apart. So even if Kent goes the other way, do you really think that Kent will go better than 6-2? So
yes.
You think they could go 7-1, 8-0?
8-0 is unlikely. They got
because here's the thing:
I think they can go 6-2. Yeah.
If you beat Kent, you go 6-2. You win the tiebreaker.
Right. Well, that's the game, though. I have them losing to Kent, so
that's the Kent game is more important than the Western Michigan game. The Western Michigan game, you can lose against Western Michigan. Just beat Kent. If you beat Kent,
it's a game and a half.
You have a very I don't know what the percentages would say, but I would say if you beat Kent State, you should probably have a 60+% chance of winning the division, just based on how things are going to play out. Akron, Bowling Green, Ohio, Miami, they're going to all scramble each other. They're going to be somewhere between 2 to 4 wins each of them. Maybe one of them will go 5-3, but circle that Kent game. That will determine the entire season.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I don't think that there's another competitor in the East. Toledo with a pretty big win over Ball. I'm not sure why they're already playing MAC competition there. They both only played 3 out of conference games, which is weird. But that did happen. Toledo did beat Ball State 22-12. Interestingly enough here today. So Toledo, I just personally think if Buffalo is the top team in the East, they'd be the 4th team in the West. I mean, roughly.
That's fair. Central looks good. Western looks good. Central had a good comeback today against, I think it was Florida International.
I mean, Eastern beat UMass.
Ball State might be the best in the East if they were in the East.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree, and they play at the end of the year. So you have Eastern, a team that has looked good and out of conference, beating UMass and Texas State. I mean, it's not crazy things to write home about, but those are still good wins.
I guess when you look at this team, it's really easy to get really high on the highs and really low on the lows. I feel like that's something that has been a problem. The consistency so far earlier this year has been a problem. But what
about Kevin Marks, a guy you were supposed to rely on the consistency on there, Mike? A guy you were supposed to rely on putting the ball on the ground and putting your team in such a poor position when you needed it. And basically, the announcers were wrong all game, and we don't have a box score, so we don't know I don't know that he came back much, if at all. But you can't have that.
I think you have to start wondering now if he's even going to be the bell cow going forward. I think Dylan McDuffie has established himself as the best running back on this team at this moment. And just going over a couple things. So what I think there is to like about this team going forward and what I think you can be concerned about. So if you look at the defense, I think the pressure this team generates is great for a MAC team. I think this team can get to the quarterback better than most teams in the MAC.
I agree with that.
This has been the case for 2-3 years now. And as long as Riggins is okay, that should continue. I think overall, linebacker play, you have 2 good linebackers in James Patterson and Gaddafi Wright, who should be among the better ones in the MAC. At least Gaddafi Wright. He makes enough big plays on a week-to-week basis and had a sack today. Secondary-wise, I don't trust any MAC secondary. So it doesn't matter who's in the secondary. I'm never going to trust the secondary in the MAC. But were there some holes today and some mistakes? Yeah. Let's see MAC quarterbacks exploit them on a week-to-week basis. I think a lot of times it's more about the quarterback you're facing than the secondary in the MAC. If you have quarterbacks that are able to take advantage of a secondary, they will. And if you have bad quarterbacks, it doesn't matter who's back there. You'll take advantage of them. If you look at the UB offense, I think running-wise, I think they'll be able to find lanes against MAC opponents. I think Dylan McDuffie is going to be the bell cow going forward. He's been the most consistent early. I've seen him make runs out of nothing. Kevin Marks, I'm concerned. I really have not seen much from him. I keep every week trying to talk him up like something's going to happen, and I have not seen a ton from him yet. Ron Cook, he's a good player, but honestly, I was expecting more from him at this point of the season as well. Passing-wise, it's ugly. I like Keon Williams. I like what he brings. That was a good transfer from Eastern Michigan, but I've been hesitant about this, and I've been telling Rob in our chats that I don't want to go to Matt Myers yet. But some of those throws from Van Treese today were a little bit scary, and I'm starting to wonder, is it worth giving Myers some more opportunities just to see what the offense might look? And then special teams, we've been talking about this forever. 2 block punts in a row to start the game, that's atrocious. But you do have to give them credit. The blocked field goal return, 90 yards. That was a hell of a play. And without that play, they don't win this game. So special teams overall, D+, but give them credit for the field goal block. And then finally, they made a punter change late, and that was a huge difference. You just wonder, what the heck were they watching in practice to stay with the decisions that they were staying with? It was baffling.
Yeah, and I think our comments are turned off, and I think we have some people chiming in. Promo the Robot says, I wouldn't assume anything about this team until they put together a complete game.
That's fair.
He tweeted that to our link that we posted. We'll get our comments back up, guys. I know we have some viewers. I think we needed to connect a few more accounts so that we can get our comments back up and rolling. What else do we have? We have Erie County Bulls saying, talk about Shane Montgomery. I mean, I talked about it on the chat here in our group chat, in our group texts. He's been poor to start the season. I got to be fair. I mean, I have to be fair. I think he's been called a very passive game plan. I think that they're not sure what their identity is, Mike. And I think that that's fair to say. Even us on the pregame show we were going both ways. What do they throw? Do they run? The team looked like they could throw the ball a little bit. They're mixing in a little bit of different receivers. And then they just don't have any offensive identity. I think that needs to change quickly as we approach this soft-ish MAC East schedule, specifically. If 5 games against soft teams, we wanted to see them move the ball offensively and prove they could. Showed a little bit of it in the first half. Absolutely they give me no, they breed no confidence into me. Up 12, up 21, up 24. This is why. If teams can focus on their running game, which was poor, what is the offensive identity? Montgomery's got a long way to go, in my opinion, to earn my trust for this program. So we'll see how that goes. Equally so, I talked about it. Joe Cawthon, the defensive coordinator, I thought was pretty good most of the time. That defensive front and pressure was good. Just some lapses at the DB, not bringing down the quarterback again was poor. But yeah, I mean, if we're specifically talking about the offensive coordinator, UB's got a little bit to prove to me, Mike, that they can move the ball successfully against some of the poorest opponents that we've already broken down, because this was a poor opponent.
Yeah, let me throw something by you, and you might think this is crazy. My belief is, in order for Van Treese to be your quarterback, you need to run the ball. And you need to run the ball effectively. Yeah. I have always the reason why I've been a proponent of Van Treese for the last year and a half is I have believed that when UB faces conference opponents in the inferior competition, that they'll be able to run the ball, and that he is a good enough game manager to where if your defense plays solid, he's in charge. You won't make the mistakes that will cost you. More so, like, I don't want to say that you're playing afraid, but you're playing it safe. But, and this isn't even his fault, if the run game is going to suck, Well, then you might as well have Matt Myers in the game. And I don't even blame Van Treese for that. It's just that I believe Myers is the more dynamic of the two, but I believe he's also the risk taker of the two. So if the offense can't get anything going running the ball, you're going to have to find a way to open it up. So that's why I think Myers in that type of situation could deserve a chance, because he can at least try to facilitate something with his legs or go down the field. I know that logic is kind of out there, but they I don't know, man. If they don't find a way to get this running game going, I think they
got some
will.
numbers. I got some official numbers, Mike. Don't mean to interrupt a little bit there, but we're getting toward the end of the show. Some box scores have came out, and I haven't even had a chance to really look at much. We'll start with UB's offense to kind of cap the show off. Kyle Van Treese, 17 for 26 for 191 and 1 touchdown with a 7.3 average. You had Dylan Duffy, 16 for 59 and a touch, only 3.7 yards. The offensive line struggled. You had Kevin Marks, 13 for 33, 2.5 yards per carry and a fumble. That is 1 fantasy point from a guy we expected a lot more out of there in Kevin Marks. Ron Cook, 5 for 11 with a 2.2 yards per carry.
That's the 38. That's everybody.
38 rushes for 106 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. That's not what you want against an inferior opponent, and only 191 passing yards. And the passing offense surprisingly looked better with Keon Williams going for 9 for 134 and a touch, something we wanted to see. He played good, pretty much the player of the game. We're going to give Keon Williams the player of the UB bullet points. Hartman's the Schilling player of the game, 9 for 134 with 14.9 yards per catch and 1 touchdown. Easily the best player in the football game today. An EMU transfer. They scored big with him. Keon now has 350 yards receiving and a touchdown. Pretty big part of this UB offense. Would like to use him as much as possible. So we're going to give him the key to the game. But real quickly, we'll flip to the other side and then get your opinions. DJ Mack, 24 for 41 for 224 and a touchdown, 84 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Blake Watson, 13 carries for 81 and a touchdown. They gave up 209 yards on the ground for 4 touchdowns, Mike. And then you look down to the receiving. Zach Kuntz with that big catch at the end of the game, 6 for 45 and a touchdown. And Allie Jennings, 7 for 68. Not too much. We don't have any defensive stats yet we could really look at. But what are your kind of recap analysis of all those you heard?
My recap is that the better team lost the game.
On paper.
And it's so weird saying that when one team was up by 28 points going into the second half, and you're saying that they were the inferior team on the field, but they weren't. UB had
433 total yards to UB's 297.
UB had 2 really random plays that swung the entire momentum their way and ended up being just enough to win. You look at the field goal block return for a touchdown. That's a 10-point swing. Yep. And then you also have the Tim Terry fumble return touchdown. That's another touchdown right there. And then to have a missed extra point because your backup quarterback decides to get an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on what would have been a game-tying field goal, game-tying touchdown with 19 seconds left. Now, how about that story? I mean, I doubt it will, but that's something that should be talked about on SportsCenter tonight, just for the craziness of what just happened.
If they were better, if that team mattered more, it would absolutely be a story on SportsCenter. 433 total yards to UB's 297. Both teams are 7 for 15 on third down, which is interesting. Just an over-officiated game both ways. Oh, they were an atrocious unit from not even having a microphone to just making poor calls all game both ways. I'm not going to say UB struggled there. Sometimes if warranted, I will. Not in this game. I thought they were a horrible officiating staff. Maybe nine penalties, 110 yards. Old Dominion 10 penalties for 86 yards. But the big difference is same time of possession, about 30 minutes each. 3 turnovers to 1. And the blocked field goal is not even a turnover. Do they consider that a fumble loss? I don't even know. Is that considered a turnover?
I don't know. I've never actually thought about that.
I don't think so. No, they lost because they lost 2 fumbles. They lost 2 fumbles and they lost an interception. So, just blatantly, you're right. potentially the better team in the box score lost the game. The better team on paper won the game. And lots of injuries. Mike, every four plays, a player was on the ground. I've never quite seen that before. Like, it was like watching a 1-0 soccer game to a team that wasn't supposed to be winning was winning.
It was freaky. I mean, you don't know what leads to that. You don't want to speculate, but yeah, that definitely was another factor in this game.
We don't know who was out of the game. We don't know what happened there. That could have played a role in this. There was, just every play there was an injury. It didn't seem like it was too hot there, in the 70s throughout most of that game toward the end. But Mike, lots to talk about. We're going to do a pregame show, and we'll probably regurgitate some of this, but we'll kind of break down some of it. Look out for that on Friday. We'll get into the Western Michigan pregame show, and we'll kind of go through some more of this. Hartman's Distilling, thank you guys for sticking with us here for 30 minutes. After that game, after everyone wants some reactions, we'll turn on comments. We're already working on it. We want to make sure we hear from you guys outside of just whoever tweeted to the official video. Mike, any final thoughts?
Well, final thought is it's better to be talking to you right now after winning this game than losing this game. I can at least put a smile on my face and be happy that there's a 2 in the win column and not a 3 in the loss column. If they would have lost this would have been one of those games that could have destroyed the season, could have destroyed morale. Coach would have talked about, well, we're going to forget about this. It's a clean slate. We're going into the MAC the next week. But let's be real. If you blow a 28-point lead against a team like Old Dominion, every time you have a lead, you're going to be wondering, are we going to be in this situation again? And so it sucked. It was horrible. It was crazy. But you know what? By a miracle, they found a way to finish it off. They got that 500 record. MAC play begins on Saturday. Let's go. Let's hope for a good MAC season. And let's see what this team can do this year.
From Kevin, that's Mike. Catch you on the pregame show. Hartman's Distilling. Get out there to Chicago Street and check it out. But this is our time. We'll see you on Friday. And seriously, good night now.